South Point offers all the types of entertainment you'd expect at a first-class Las Vegas resort. Did you know our 400-seat showroom is one of Las Vegas's top destinations for live entertainment? Enjoy live performances by classic Vegas entertainers, bands, and today's hottest comedians, plus a rockin' dance floor. You can also enjoy live entertainment at the Grand View Lounge, where you'll feel all the vibes of old Las Vegas. Enjoy the music, and if you love to laugh, don't miss The Dirty at 12:30, our very own free comedy show, every Friday night at 12:30 a.m. in the Grand View Lounge. The Dirty is 100% free, so arrive early. Go to southpointcasino.com or call the box office at 77136 for today's performances at the showroom and the Grand View Lounge. When you're ready for your favorite cocktail, stop in and unwind at one of our 7 specialty lounges. There's a bar around every corner, because you're in Vegas, baby. South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome in. Good afternoon. It is Sports by the Book Football Frenzy. You're on a Monday before Christmas. I'm Jeff Parles, Ryan McCormick. Festive, as always.
The
there we go.
Tie.
By the way, happy Festivus to everyone who celebrates as well. We'll have some airing of grievances in a few moments, actually.
Another big day today, too.
What else do we have?
The 52nd anniversary of the Immaculate Reception.
Oh, boy.
And Raider fans are still crying about it.
Well, Chris, I will say anytime in the few times I've flown into the Pittsburgh airport, you get greeted with that catch every single time.
Yeah. And then George Washington's there. What's he have to do with it? Franco's plenty.
There's no William Penn statue, at least. I don't know. That's Chris Andrews on the end of the desk, of course, sportsbook director here at the South Point. We have a lot to get to today. We are not only doing just tonight's game, which it's probably good that we're just not doing tonight's game. Yeah. We have 2 Christmas Day games as well that we'll break down, and they're good games at that. Yeah. After, quite frankly, at least Chiefs-Texans delivered, and Steelers struggling a little bit against the better competition.
Yeah, but they had a couple of big plays that could have turned that game much
turnovers.
different.
Yeah. Turnovers.
Well, I mean, Wilson's turnover when he's 2 yards from the goal line, and then. A bad pick six, but that changed the score quite a bit.
Missing George Pickens has been
definitely, that's big. Yeah.
So starting with tonight, first, Chris, Spencer Rattler gets the start. As I brought up on the show, I don't remember if I brought it up yesterday or with you guys on Friday. I think I actually brought it up yesterday. Spencer Rattler was asked, how are you preparing for the cold this week in Green Bay? And apparently the Saints quarterback coach took all of the quarterbacks on the roster, so Rattler, Hainer, and whoever else may be there, and put them in the meat locker.
I saw that.
Put them in the meat locker for their preparation.
Yeah.
For the cold weather in Green Bay tonight, which, if we're wondering how cold it is in Green Bay, Wisconsin, quite frankly, is not even bad. It's barely even freezing there tonight.
Yeah.
At 33 degrees. They'll get into the mid-20s by the middle of the game, but still, Monday before Christmas, Green Bay, 20s, sounds good to me. It's 14 with a total of 43.5 on this one. Packers, huge favorites here tonight.
Most of the point spread money is on the dog. Now, money line, we got a ton of parlays riding on Green Bay, but not a ton. We knocked out a few yesterday. But as of now, we need Green Bay to not just win, but we need them to cover the 14. So that's where we're at, but we still got a couple hours till post time. We'll see. It's starting to trickle in on Green Bay.
The thing about tonight is that the Packers just need a win and they clinch a playoff spot. So they don't care to cover the 14. They will be celebrating no matter what, as long as they get the win tonight.
Well, Big Daddy cares. I can tell you that.
The Packers, again, the NFC right now, Green Bay, Minnesota just keeps winning. So Packers are pretty much going to have to beat Minnesota this upcoming Saturday, and then the Vikings are going to have to lose twice in order for Green Bay to move higher than the 6, where they look pretty well locked in at this point. Christmas Day, the weird one here for us, just betting-wise, because it's a Wednesday. Very rare in NFL history if we ever had Wednesday games. Last time, actually, we had a Wednesday game was Pittsburgh against Baltimore, the year of the pandemic, if you remember that one. That was supposed to go on Thanksgiving, went 6 days later, and we ended up getting multiple schedule changes because of it. Kansas City, who, didn't I say the Chiefs played well against the Texans? I thought they played pretty well in that game, actually. I know everyone obviously has been whining all year about they've gotten lucky, all so on and so forth. I thought Kansas City actually played a pretty darn good football game, and Houston, on the other end, played a reasonable game as well. Of course, they lose Tank Dell for the season with that awful-looking knee injury. Where
I don't want to watch that again.
That was horrible. That was horrible. He basically tore all of his major muscles in the knee. Horrible, or ligaments, I should say, in the knee. But the Chiefs go to Pittsburgh. We just talked about it a little bit. Steelers back-to-back weeks is almost touchdown underdogs twice. They don't cover either games in Philadelphia or Baltimore. Turnovers have been the difference with Russell Wilson. He has missed George Pickens the last few weeks. Chris, you guys open 2. Early action on the favorite here with Casey up to 2.5.
Yeah, let me back up 1 second, talk about tonight's game just real quick.
Yeah,
Aaron Schatz, I see a thing by him. There's DVOA for the last, like 5-6 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
Green Bay's like one of the very top
teams.
Yeah. So now I don't know.
It's Toyota-thon, Chris.
I forgot about that. I didn't have that in my number. But I don't know how much we'll glean out of tonight's game. I mean, if they win by 10, that's still pretty good performance. Anyway, on to, first of all, the Steelers. I can remember like maybe 10 years ago, something like that. If you were going to like or not like a game because of a receiver, you were kind of a square. You didn't know but now, I mean, you see how important, well, their number 1 receiver, I mean, really, because their number 2 receiver, it's a pretty big drop-off. So that really means a lot. We'll see. They're going to try to get Pickens healthy for this game, and I think it will mean a lot. However, I will say this, and even though my pure power rating numbers only come to the Chiefs 1 in this game, I can tell when I'm rising. That's just not right, because I've always said the time to bet against the Chiefs is when they're at home, because that number gets padded more than it should. But the time to bet on them is where they're on the road. So like I said, even though my numbers came to 1, I thought 3 might be a tad high, but I thought this had to be 2.5 or 3. We did get bet up to 2.5, and I think the money line's gone up a little bit too, if I remember correctly. So I mean, obviously I'm going to be rooting for the Steelers, but I'm not sure this is a great spot for them. But if Pickens back, and they need a win in a game like this.
Do you have any kind of added home field advantage for the Steelers on a holiday game like this?
No, and I'm going to tell you why. Because first of all, it's a myth that they travel so well. They don't travel so well. They have fans all over the country. Right. They don't have to travel. Yeah. So their home field advantage is kind of like normal, which for me is only like 1.5 points. Okay. Because there's not that big of a disparity home and road. What's this going to be on a holiday? Ryan, that's a good question. I mean, I hope you have a point, but I don't know right now. And I guess we'll know come Christmas evening. Right. So, but we don't know it right now.
Well, we miss a white Christmas by a day in Pittsburgh. Snow in the forecast tomorrow on Christmas Eve.
It was snowing yesterday, too. I was texting with my buddies back there.
So weather, 38 degrees on Christmas Day in Pittsburgh. That's pretty good, too.
That is pretty good. But I got to tell you, we were setting up the parlay card today and looking at some of these totals. There is bad weather throughout the country, even in Florida. Jacksonville and Tampa have some rain coming. So be careful betting totals. If you're betting over, I'd say wait maybe till the day of the game, the day before, we get a little better weather forecast.
By the way, you just moved to 3 as you were on the air.
Oh, really?
So there you go. With KC now favored, of course.
I can see it. I mean,
makes sense. The other game, Ravens and Texans, from 3.5 to 5 now with Baltimore laying it on the road. It is a revenge spot for Deontay Johnson, who was claimed by the Texans earlier today to replace Tank Dell. I thought Houston played a pretty reasonable game in Kansas City. Just in the end, just the interception early by Stroud led the points the other way. Not efficient enough, and kind of just been the case with Houston this year against high-end teams. Right. Just one thing pushes them out of being able to win the game, and happen again against KC. Ravens, again, I think I actually like the opening number a little bit better than where the bettors have taken this a little bit, Chris. But it's not like Houston has any home field advantage to speak of here in this game.
They got a slight one. They're very slight. I made a number 4.
Okay.
So I moved it quickly from 3.5 to 4, but now we got bet up to 5. One of my sharp players laid me to 4. So here we are with that. And, I think I kind of disagree with you on the Texans. I mean, they just seem like they just don't have it, And they'll win the division, and they'll probably get a home game, I guess.
Well, they will get a home game with the division championship.
They'll get a home game, and likely be a home dog. Depends on who they're going to play.
Well, we'll see if we can continue the stretch, Chris. The Houston Texans, if they have played in a wild card weekend, when they have hosted the game, and they actually have never played a road wild card weekend game yet. Their only appearances in the playoffs in franchise history have only been via division championships. They have only played kickoff games at 4:30 Eastern on Saturday their entire existence. Now, granted, not a very long existence, but we got to keep that streak going here.
Interesting.
Yet again, by the way, this is a very likely, or not very likely, a very possible wild card weekend 4 versus 5. Mm-hmm. Steelers and Ravens would have to have the same record these last 2 weeks in order for the Steelers to hold the division. If the Ravens go 2-0 and Pittsburgh does not go 2-0, Baltimore will get more likely than not the 3 seed in the AFC playoffs.
I know if Pittsburgh wins out, they have a better conference record.
If Pittsburgh wins out, they win the division. But if Baltimore
there's obviously a big game. But listen, they're a 3-point dog. How many 3-point dogs win?
A lot.
Quite a few. Yeah,
even though home underdogs this year have been as bad as they've ever been.
Well, it shows you a home field advantage. Yeah. Did you read Jeff Fogel's article about 2 weeks ago?
I know what you're talking about.
It's a really good article, and Jeff backs not just his opinion. I mean, he backs everything with facts. So it's a very fact-based thesis of his.
So, Chris, college football playoff. We know the quarters. So 3 of the teams that played this past weekend are favored.
And the other one opened a favorite.
The other one opened a favorite and has flipped over to the other one. That's a Sugar Bowl. We'll get to that in a second. But you can see, I really am thrilled with how the conversation has gone after. The conversation after this weekend has been complete nonsense from everyone to me. Because you have, the undeserving Indiana and SMUs of the world got destroyed. All right, fine. They were both more than well, I know Notre Dame closed a touchdown, but they both opened more than a touchdown on the road against teams that are, A, much better than they are, B, legit high-end home field advantages in Notre Dame Stadium and Beaver Stadium, and then C, the least competitive game of the whole weekend involved the Tennessee Volunteers. And why are they getting left out of this? The most competitive game, the most competitive underdog this weekend was Clemson. They were 1 yard away from covering against Texas.
Well, the reason is because Paul Feinbaum is leading and Kirk Herbstreit. We love Kirk, but I think he's dead wrong here, and I'm going to tell you why. You look at Indiana's. He's specifically named Indiana. Yep. They did nothing to deserve it. So let me just tell you this: you could look at their schedule back in August and say, I don't care what you do, you are not going to be able to get in the playoff. Like you say, well, they could have beat Ohio State. What if Ohio State's 7-5 1 year? And if they fire, Ryan Day, there's a good chance they'll be 7-5 next year. So, by the way, they're in the Big Ten, either the best or second best conference. Mm-hmm. They don't make their conference schedule. It's on a rotation basis. So they have nothing to do with that. So you're looking at their schedule at the beginning of the year. You cannot make this playoff. Hey, we'll see you in the Holiday Bowl. I hope you have a great year. That's it. Yeah. That's as far as you're going to go. And next year it'll be somebody else. And, because next year I'm sure they're rotating. They're going to get Michigan and Penn State and Ohio State.
But this is the product, though. and this is going to happen in this format probably more years than not.
It will.
Where you're going to get an 11-win team in either the SEC or 11 or 10-win team, either in the SEC or the Big Ten. And quite frankly, Tennessee was kind of guilty of it too. They just happened to beat Alabama. They just happened to win one of the big games on their schedule. But you're going in the Big Ten. I think this will happen more often than the SEC. Because I think
there's a wider disparity.
Correct.
Of talent.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a wider disparity at the bottom of the Big Ten as opposed to the bottom of the SEC, where, quite frankly, other than Mississippi State this year,
I mean, Vanderbilt was pretty darn good.
Kentucky was a one-win conference team that beat Ole Miss in the Grove. Mm-hmm. You're going to have this though when you have 18-team mega conferences. These schedules are imbalanced because of that.
Now, if you want to talk about redoing the seedings, I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
So even after the first weekend, that is the only change that should be looked at in a big-time fashion moving forward. And quite frankly, if the College Football Committee ticks off the ACC and the Big 12, I don't really care because that's the main reason that we have the 4 bye seeds for the conference champion.
Well, again, you're projecting ahead. You're looking at this year and projecting it towards next year. What if Utah? Listen, Utah at the beginning of the year
go 12-0. Absolutely.
Utah, we thought was going to be one of the best teams in the country, like top 4 or 5 teams in the country. They had a horrible year. Rising, I'm sure, is a big part of it. So that what if we have that Big 12 there? So I mean, and I'll tell you the truth, I can even be convinced of keeping it the way it is. But this year would have been better off to reseed under a different structure.
Well, and this year would have been, if we had just done it straight seedings, it would have been Oregon 1, Georgia 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4. All right, nothing wrong with that. Notre Dame would have played Clemson, fine. Ohio State would have played Arizona State in a 6-11, fine. SMU would have played Tennessee in a 7-10. All right, 2 teams that are already out, but fine. And then Indiana would have hosted Boise in an 8-9, which, forget that game, which actually would have been a really fun game.
Would have been a really good game.
Would have been a really fun game and more competitive than any of the games we saw this weekend. Oregon, instead of playing a team where they are a legitimate underdog this week, they would have actually played a team that they would have been favored in by double digits, more likely than not, and it would have been a lot fairer to the only undefeated team in the dark field.
I can go for that. I'm not crazy about it, and I'll tell you, under my scenario, I still think how many conferences do we have in the NCAA? Was it 9?
It's 8 now, isn't it?
It's
right?
8 now.
I think it's
I know.
8.
Well, the Big Ten, I'm not sure what we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say there's a.
Well, it'll be 9 when the Pac-12 comes back.
Okay. We should have all 8 should be in. I mean, I think it should be a 16-team conference, 16-team playoff. And you're saying, well, it's going to be unfair. Like, let's say Army's going to play Oregon. Fine. Oh, it's a mismatch. Go look at that SEC, this vaunted SEC. Sure. Go see who they play like in Week 10 every year.
Come on, UMass is
Western Illinois, UMass, Tennessee in week whatever played Kent State. My lowest rated team ever, although the Bear called me out. He thinks Kennesaw is worse. Okay, but they might be on an SEC schedule too.
Hey, Kennesaw won 2. Kennesaw beat Liberty this year, one of the bigger upsets of the year.
Right. So anyway, that's my point. Is like there's mismatches. Fine, let Army go, or whoever wins the AAC. It was Army. It might be Memphis or I'm just pulling it. Tulane, Memphis. Sure. I don't care. Let them play too. Yeah. Why not? The NCAA basketball team tournament seems to work fine. Yeah. We have 30. Well, we don't have too many 30-point dogs now, but we used to. Well, now we have 17, 18-point dogs.
16 seeds are still usually about 23, 24 in the first round.
Let them play. Yeah. Let them play.
No, and look, it's interesting in that scenario. If you went to 16, so you have 7 at-large bids right
you
now.
Have 7 at-large.
You would have 8 at-large.
Okay.
With
the 9th at-large will be bitching again. Yeah, probably be an SEC team.
No, but in this scenario, it would have been Ole Miss that would have been left out, but don't lose at home to 4-win Kentucky.
So you shouldn't have lost to Kentucky.
Yeah.
Can I present my idea?
Go ahead, real quick.
Okay, so keep it 12.
Okay.
You win your conference. Yeah, we have 5 conference champions guaranteed a spot, right? The 4 highest ranked conference champions are guaranteed a bye. Remove that. You're guaranteed a bye if you are one of the top 4 teams in the country. If you happen to win your conference, great. You get a home game. Whether that be in the first round, whether you get the bye, you have a home game. Not necessarily in your own building because of neutral sites and all that kind of stuff. But say Boise State the 3 seed now, but number 9 ranked, they would instead host a game in round 1. Someone would have to go to the blue turf, and then you get a home field advantage for a team that wouldn't necessarily have it in a big game. And then you wouldn't have SMU going to Penn State. You wouldn't have Indiana going to Notre Dame. You'd have the lower schools getting to face the bigger school, like Clemson going to South Carolina towards the end of the year. Or South Carolina going to Clemson. You'd have a Texas going to Clemson, having to beat them on the road. Texas didn't have a top 25 ranked win. Clemson didn't have a top 25 ranked win. So, well, other than winning their conference championship. But Texas would then have to go on the road, prove that you can beat a top 25 team, and congratulations. Now you are one of the top 8 teams remaining in the college football playoff. So my thing is, you win your conference, you're guaranteed a home game, not a bye. You're guaranteed a bye if you're one of the best 4 programs in the country. And then you can rank them throughout otherwise.
I can go for that one too. Yeah, I think right now, again, we're making a lot of assumptions based on this year.
Right.
Arizona State won a top conference. I mean,
they deserve to be there for sure.
Yeah,
which
it was off.
I'm saying they should get a game in their home stadium. They shouldn't have to have a home game against Texas in a neutral site. They should get a home game in their building.
You know what? I kind of like your idea. I think it's pretty good, but I still like 16. And, because I think every conference should just have a chance to play.
Well, you could have had Oregon against Jacksonville State. I mean, that's essentially just Oregon getting a bye to the second round anyway.
That's fine. How many times did Duke or North Carolina play some piece of crap in the?
Trust me, Chris.
Sure.
Yeah. We all know.
Notre Dame NIU earlier this year.
Yeah. Hey, look, it can happen for sure. All right, Chris. We'll let you go back to work.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got to go see how we got the 3 on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got to drum up some business on Green Bay.
Packers and the Saints here tonight. We'll get into it right now. All right, Ryan, 14 on this game, 43.5 the total. Spencer Rattler makes the start for New Orleans after taking over midstream last week and almost leading a wild, almost shocking comeback, which was aided by the Superdome clock operator, but that's a different discussion for a different time. Brian, I hate laying double digits in the National Football League, but I just can't see any legitimate argument for New Orleans here tonight other than just a number take. That's the only argument that I can see here that I'm getting 14 in a National Football League game. I'm obliged to take it. I think Green Bay runs them out of the building here tonight. And I think Green Bay does it through Jordan Love's arm, even more so than Josh Jacobs here tonight. I think with the weather being as good as you could ask for Green Bay in December, I think this is a big Jordan Love game tonight. The only traditional sense bet that I like, I would lay the lumber with Green Bay. No, it's kind of frightening to lay that much in the NFL, but I think there's a run out here tonight.
Yeah, and it is in Toyotathon, so you should be getting a good night
did you
from
see,
Jordan Love.
I sent you it earlier. So Jordan Love even acknowledging the Toyotathon thing here today.
Yeah, well, then he also acknowledges that he's not good outside of Toyotathon, so he needs to fix that. But I'm okay with him not doing that as a Bears fan. But anyway, getting into this game, the Saints have gone 3 straight games where their team total has been in the teens, 14, 14, and 19. Their offense isn't moving the ball very well. Spencer Rattler, this will be his first game in the NFL that he will attempt to pass outdoors, and it's in Lambeau Field. Quite a friendly confine that one will be for Spencer Rattler tonight. But as I said earlier in the show, the Packers clinch a playoff berth with a win tonight. So I don't think they're going to be that hard pressed to win this one by several scores. They just want to win this one to get into the playoffs and be able to coast for the remainder of the year. Not necessarily coast, as Jeff had pointed out. They can still improve their playoff position by some things with the Vikings, but the Packers just need to win tonight. Don't need to win convincingly in any sort of way. But we are dealing with a team that is in the top 10 in both of our power rankings. Not, you know what I mean. And then the Saints in the bottom 5 of our power rankings. So this is a bottom team in the National Football League versus a top team in the National Football League, and this 14 points is warranted. But I won't be making a confident play on that side or on the number. Because it is such a high number. So,
real quick, Ryan, just to get off this game for a second, Georgia for the college football playoff real quick, has just announced that Carson Beck is done for the year.
Okay.
That is Tommy John surgery. You don't
Yikes.
you don't hear that very often for an NFL quarterback.
Yikes. That hurts his draft
The
stock,
exact
too.
same. Well, I think he's probably going to be back in black and red.
Yeah.
More likely than not after
Now
the year he's
so,
had, and
yeah.
now the injury. Who knows? Maybe somewhere else. I'm just just the fact that this number hasn't really moved over the last minute or so since that news has come out kind of tells you that this line was already baked, that it was going to be Gunnar Stockton anyway at quarterback for Georgia. So Notre Dame 1.5-point dogs, 2 at some spots. So just at least we know now. We figured that was going to be the case, but we now know officially that Carson Beck's season is over for the Georgia Bulldogs. There's some breaking news to at least go to that here right now. Back to the NFL game tonight. Anytime touchdown market. Josh Jacobs is minus 320 to score an anytime touchdown tonight at DraftKings, Ryan.
Yeah, plus 160. So the second highest odds to score 2 touchdowns. So
Plus 160 to score 2. The next guy in this game is plus 165
Right.
anytime. Are we just going back to the Tucker Kraft again, like we've been doing in these prime time Green Bay games? Kraft right now plus 250. That's actually kind of the highest he's been in a while in one of these single window games. That would be him, Christian Watson. I think there's a big Christian Watson game here tonight. I just think New Orleans is going to struggle to cover him in the deep ball. So Watson, Kraft would be the 2 names I'd look at in an anytime touchdown market on the Green Bay side. I really want to go Jamal Williams on the New Orleans side, but I just can't do it because Jamal Williams barely played this year because he not the same guy he was pre-injury.
yeah, the only worry I have for Tucker Kraft is that Luke Musgrave is returning tonight for the Packers. So getting there.
It's a good price on Musgrave if you want to take a
7 to
shot
1.
on that.
But he hasn't played since week 4. So it would be coming off of IR, jumping right in, getting a touchdown. If you want to take a shot at the 7 to 1, that's your money. Go for it. But the one that I'm looking at tonight is Juwan Johnson plus the 650.
Nice.
The Saints tight end. I think if the Saints are going to score in this one, I don't necessarily like them to score in general, but Juwan Johnson is the one pass catcher I do see doing it for the Saints tonight. Foster Moreau is their tight end too. They're both right there at plus 650, but Juwan Johnson is more of a pass catching tight end for the Saints. He has 2 catches in 12 of his 14 games this season. So when he gets targets, he catches them. He also has over 70% of the 70% of snaps, I believe, in 5 straight games. So should be a good night for Juwan Johnson. Also, being that the Packers defense is susceptible to tight ends. So Juwan Johnson, anytime touchdown plus 650 is the one that I'm looking at of those prices.
I can't hate Foster Moreau either in that circumstance. If you're going to go bomb hunting here today on the Saints side, let's put it this way: I would not bet Kendry Miller. No, wouldn't do that. The kid, the kid who was 18 to 1 at DraftKings, whose name is escaping me, apparently was the most bet anytime touchdown at FanDuel today. See, it just shows how prominent the kid is that I can't even think of the kid's name. The Jordan Mims, who has 12 carries on the season. Again, no Alvin Kamara, no Chris Olave, no Derek Carr tonight for Olave. Olave's just not going to play again this year with multiple concussions in a month. Boy, say rough for New Orleans here tonight. Quarterback props. We'll hit these quickly here, Ryan. Look, you're laying a pretty steep price on Spencer Rattler to throw a pick.
Yeah.
But I think that's still probably okay here tonight against that turnover-happy Green Bay offense. Minus 200, which is just super, super, super juice. But you're probably still okay there. I actually like Spencer Rattler's rushing total over 18.5 yards. I think there could be a lot of panic from him tonight. So we might just get one of those weird games where he has like 7 carries for 22 yards.
Okay.
We don't have to worry about kneel downs at the end of the game either, because if that happens, then we're talking about the upset of the year in the NFL. But that's the only way to look at it, the Rattler side. Jordan Love, I have 2 things I like Jordan Love-wise. Longest completion over. It is a super high number at 38.5. I think we're getting 150-yard play to Watson tonight. I really do. I'm all over Christian Watson as well. And I'm going to take a bite of the apple of Jordan Love to throw 3+ touchdowns at plus 340. I wish I was getting a little bit of a better price on that, but this feels like one of those, especially when your 2 is minus 170. Take a little bit of bite of the apple at plus 340 on the Love end to throw 3+ here tonight for Green Bay.
I like the 3. Well, no, I wouldn't say 3. I do like the 2. It is plus even money. Did I?
Yeah. So that number on the screen is not correct. It is even money on that. So it's a little bit different there, Ryan.
Interesting. Okay. Mental mistake there, but it's all right. All good. Okay. So yeah, Jordan Love, that 28.5 complete attempts, he has gone over in 5 of his 12 starts this season. He's gone under in 5 straight games though. Over completions, you'll need 20 of them to get the over tonight. 6-6 this season, has gone over in 2 of the last 3. His passing yardage, 232.5, is 6-6 this season. Under in 3 of the last 4 games. That passing touchdowns, I do like the over. He is 8-4 this season, over in 3 of the last 4. His interception, he is 8-4 this season. Those 4 losses are the last, or 4 no's are the last 4 weeks. So Jordan Love is taking care of the football of late. And I would expect him to kind of do so again tonight. But anytime touchdown, 1-11 this season, and his longest completion, he's actually 10-2 to the over. But both unders were at home, not needing necessarily the massive play in Lambeau, but is getting massive chunk yard completions. Jordan Love is. And then Spencer Rattler this season, 4 starts. Saints are 0-4 in the games that he's played in. This is his first time playing outside. So 33 attempts you'll need to get the over on that. 2-2 this season. Also 2-2 on his completions. 1-3 to his pass yards. 2-2 on that, needing just 1 passing touchdown. And 1-3 on his interception. Only has 1 game this season in which Spencer Rattler has thrown an interception. And his longest completion is that 31.5. He is 3-1 to the over. So Spencer Rattler is getting chunk plays because the Saints are needing to play catch up in these games. So I do like Spencer Rattler's longest completion over that 31.5. Also like some other action on the Saints or skill position prop side if we want to go there next.
Yep.
So Kendre Miller, it is his first ever start in the National Football League. His rushing attempts is set at 12.5. This would be his career high if he goes over. 51.5 rushing yards is his number. The only time he surpassed that was in Week 18 last year in a game that did not matter for the Saints, did not matter for the Falcons. It was just hand it off, let him run. So that was the only time he'd gotten over that 51.5. So you're going to need a career night from Kendre Miller in order to get the overs on his attempts and rushing yards. That 2.5 receptions, has caught 12 of 16 targets in his career. This is his second season. So again, they've had Alvin Kamara. He hasn't had to see much time. But Kendre Miller, as Jeff had said, kind of expecting a little more happy feet from Spencer Rattler tonight. Could see a lot more checkdowns and dump offs, good amount of screen passes as well, possibly benefiting Kendre Miller. So that over 2.5, I wouldn't fault you for taking the over. Not necessarily a confident play for me going over, but again, wouldn't fault you for going over there.
I have nothing on any of the New Orleans running backs tonight, just because I have no idea what that split is going to be. We could get some really weird stuff from that New Orleans backfield here tonight, especially, again, with Rattler at the quarterback position as well. I'm betting Marquez Valdes-Scantling over his receiving yards because MVS who has, of course, struggled at times with Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen at quarterback, has played arguably his best football of his career with Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, and Jake Haener. Because, of course, he has. So, over 33.5 on the receiving yards of Valdes-Scantling here tonight, which I guess in theory you kind of have to take the longest reception too, because more likely than not you're getting this in a chunk where you're getting like one 30-yard play and then you just need one short catch in order to get there.
Well, I'm right there with you. I like both of those.
Yeah, on Valdez-Scantling. You like Juwan Johnson tonight in the anytime touchdown market. Are you doing anything that's on the screen there, Ryan?
So as I mentioned earlier, he does have every game that he has a target this season, he has at least 2 catches in that game. His 3.5 catches over in only 3 of the 14 games that he's played in this season, but he has gone over in 2 of the last 3. And then that 29.5 receiving yards is 7-7 this season. That longest reception, needing 15 yards for the over, is over in 8 of the 14 games. Last week snapped a 6-game over streak. So Juwan Johnson over that 14.5 in 6 of the last 7. I do like the over, the longest reception. Not necessarily confident on the needing 4 receptions, being that they also use Foster Moreau, a good amount of 12 personnel. And Marquez Valdez-Scantling is someone else that we were also looking at tonight. So not confident on the receptions, but do like the longest reception over for Juwan Johnson tonight.
Going to the Green Bay side of things, I know we've Dobbs and Jaden Reed up there.
Yeah.
I have no problem with attacking any Jaden Reed related things here tonight. Dobbs, who's obviously coming off a monster game on Sunday night against the Seahawks, where he had one of the best touchdown catches you're going to see all year. I'm going off the board of what's off here. I'm going Christian Watson is the guy that I'm hammering tonight. Over 49.5 receiving yards. Longest reception as well for Watson. I think he's the guy who benefits most tonight. But if you want to go with Reed stuff, no problem. 3.5 receptions. Again, the one good thing with Green Bay is you have because of the collection of all these guys being pretty darn similar, you get some juicy numbers. 42.5 on receiving yards for Jaden Reed seems awfully low. Honestly, 36.5 seems awfully low for Dobbs.
Yes.
I think they're all low. The problem is that one of these guys has to go under. You're not getting all 3 of these guys over tonight. Josh Jacobs, though, I'll ask you, with the way this game flow is, this is a weird one here with the attempts, because that's the one that kind of stood out to me more than anything when we're talking about Josh Jacobs-related things. Because in theory, if this is going to be a blowout, Josh Jacobs should get a lot of touches. But my brain goes to, you play Minnesota next week. You have the playoff. Yes, you play the Bears. Packers could play their backups and they beat the Bears with how badly they've owned them at this point and how bad the Bears have been since the bye week.
All right.
Sorry, Ryan. Whatever. The Jets are going to lose by 100 to the Bills this weekend. But do you just take the foot off the gas pedal if you're Matt LaFleur here tonight with Jacobs? Do you not overwork him with a gigantic game coming up next week? And then 2 weeks after that, you're playing in the postseason. Again, it's the NFL. You still got to win the game. But you're playing a weaker opponent tonight in the game. You're likely going to have a lead by margin, more likely than not at some point.
I was curious about that exact same thing when I started looking into this game. And what I found is that Josh Jacobs has gone over that 20.5 attempts in 4 of 14 games this season. So meaning he's 4-10 to the over. The 4 times that he went over, he followed that game with 2 unders. Well, the 3 prior times, other than last week, he followed those games with at least 2 unders. He went over that last week. He had 26 carries last week. So I'm thinking this one is another kind of lighten the load for Josh Jacobs. Another point that Jeff had mentioned, going into Minnesota next week, a must-win game to improve your playoff position. I think it is a lighten load for Josh Jacobs tonight, but he does have a fun little trend for the last month and a half. Josh Jacobs, 5 weeks ago, playing against my Bears, had 1 rushing touchdown, 4 receptions. The next week, 4 weeks ago, 3 rushing touchdowns, no catches. 3 weeks ago, 1 rushing touchdown, 4 catches. 2 weeks ago, 3 rushing touchdowns. Last week, 1 rushing touchdown, 4 catches. That would mean that this week, he's due for a 3-touchdown night, which you can get for at least 6-1 on DraftKings. So I would like to play a little pizza money on Josh Jacobs plus 3, or to get 3 touchdowns tonight.
There we go.
Just for the fun little trend there. But taking a look deeper into what the prop numbers are, he is 6-6 this season to the over on his targets, has enough targets to go over in 8 of the 12 this season. But again, I expect kind of a lightened workload for Josh Jacobs. And then a note, or something that I've kind of noticed with these Packers wide receiver room, is it seems like week in and week out, they have a different guy schemed to be the one. And Jeff had mentioned that Reed, Dobbs, and Watson are kind of really all a very similar wide receiver. And so one week, Watson will be the X. Next week, Reed will be the X. And next week, Dobbs will be the X. So it's really a matter of who is where in this game. But my confident play is in Romeo Dobbs. He's got at least 70% of snaps when he's healthy in every single game this season, or the games that he's been healthy in this season. Over on his receptions in 4 of the 7 games, but you can get a plus 135 price if you want to take him over. He's gone over that 36.5 receiving yards in 8 of 11. So I really like the over on his yardage. And his longest reception, that 18.5, he's 8-3 to the over on. So I like Romeo Dobbs over longest reception, over receiving yards, and a sprinkle on that over 3.5 receptions to get that plus 135 for the value there.
Let's go to Christmas. Sure. Ryan. Let's go to the Chiefs on the road at the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Again, weather's supposed to be pretty reasonable, all things considered, for Christmas Day in western Pennsylvania. Up to 3 now on this one with Kansas City with a total of 44. Again, quick turnaround game on Wednesday. We have to see, again, the Steelers hope to have Pickens back.
Yeah.
But it is a quick turnaround to be the 3rd straight game he's missed, or excuse me, the 4th straight game he's missed, trying to avoid a 3-game losing streak as the Steelers' schedule has gotten a little more difficult over the last few weeks.
Yep.
Traditional sense, Ryan, I don't want anything to do here. I think the only thing I'd look at is the under. Concerned about the amount of time the Steelers defense has had to be on the field the last few weeks. And again, Kansas City, I think, will be willing to play one of these games where, all right, you know what? If you want to beat us in a shortened possession game, be our guest, especially if no Pickens is there. I'd only lean to the under at 44. That'd be the only way I'd even look at this in a traditional sense.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the Steelers defense being on the field. That, in large part, is due to the offense missing their biggest piece, George Pickens.
Bingo.
So the main point for me in this game is whether or not George Pickens is healthy. And I have a lot of props, or a lot of my prop numbers have to do with George Pickens being in this game or not. Taking a look at Russell Wilson right now, trying to get you guys the earliest numbers or the early odd numbers. So Russell Wilson's attempts are set at 30.5 currently, 3-6 this season. The only times that he went over were against the Bengals and in both games against the Ravens. So in games that the Steelers needed to throw the ball to keep up, to stay in it, Russell Wilson had to throw it. And I would like to think that stays the case in this one, but you need to have your wide receiver 1 in order for me to make a confident play on that one. Completions, 20.5, 4-5 this season, 4-5 to his passing yardages, which is at 221. George Pickens has missed 3 straight games. Russell Wilson has gone under in 3 straight games.
There you go.
That passing touchdowns, 5-4 this season. It is a plus price to get 2 touchdowns out of Russell Wilson on Wednesday. He's gone over that in 3 of the last 4. So despite not having George Pickens, he has gotten the touchdown passes. But if he does get George Pickens back, I would expect that passing that number, plus 115 currently, to drop immediately. So one of my most confident plays on Wednesday is Russell Wilson to have 2 touchdown passes and Russell Wilson's longest completion to be over 33.5 yards. That is because I expect George Pickens to play in this game, and that would tie into George Pickens to go over his longest reception, which is currently set at 20.5, which George Pickens has gone over in 11 of his 12 games this season. So that 20.5, I think, is way too low, and is only because they don't know if George Pickens is playing. But I think it is 100% worth it to take it, not knowing if he's going to play or not. Because if he does play, Russell Wilson moonball is kind of automatic to George Pickens.
So I'm going a little bit of a different route.
Okay.
For my favorite few plays on Christmas Day. And again, all these odds subject to change. Make sure if you,
right.
Like, these are numbers as of when we're talking about this here on Monday. Russell Wilson, let's start there. I'm going to take him to throw an interception because even if Pickens is healthy and playing, I'm not like Russell Wilson's decision-making the last few weeks. I mean, the pick 6 that ended the game on Saturday was as bad as it gets.
Yes.
Against the Ravens. And now you're playing against a defense that feasts on confusing the quarterback when it's all said and done. And I have Russell Wilson over half of an interception, so to throw one in this game against the Chiefs. I have Mahomes under his attempts, under 36 and a half attempts. Again, I think this is going to be a game where Kansas City actually wants to shorten this game. And I know that's opposite of what you would normally do when you think you're the better team, but I'm strongly in the camp of doing that here in this one.
A lot as well.
Russell Wilson, let's bring Russell Wilson up again. I don't think the scrambles are going to be there in this game. I think that Wilson, I think they kind of go hand in hand. I think Russell Wilson could be more willing to force interception and not willing to take off under 12 and a half rushing yards. Again, I know we don't love averages on these programs, but at about 9.2 yards per game on the ground. And quite honestly, the only time he's gone over these numbers is when he's popped a double-digit yard run.
Yep.
Obviously, if he pops a double-digit yard run here, you lose. Yep. But I'll take my chances that he doesn't have that. The other two in this game, we're going off the board, my friend. We're taking Alec Highsmith over a quarter of a sack. So he just has to register a half a sack, and we're good there. And then Justin Watson over 2.5 receiving yards. I was looking for a longest reception prop. And then I saw that, and I was like, well, I just need one catch, basically, at that point, if we're going over 2.5 on Justin Watson. I understand Hollywood Brown's back. I understand that he's down the depth chart. I understand we also have the Juju Smith-Schuster revenge angle, which I think is a little bit crazy, but I know some may look at that. But over 2.5 receiving yards for Watson. Hey, you get one catch for 15 yards. We're good to go on that.
I think Juju's yardage was 5.5.
It was only 5.5.
Yeah. So
super low on both of those accounts. All right. One other note I want to bring up real quick on this game. The Kansas City backfield spread is still confusing to me. Isaiah Pacheco's obviously been back a few weeks after the broken fibula. Kareem Hunt has still been in the mix. Yep. I'm very curious to see what that split is moving forward now. Last week, if we're going off of, again, now a healthier Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt still had more touches. More carries, 11 for 55. Pacheco, 9 for 26. He was not effective last week against the Houston Texans on Saturday. In that game against Cleveland, Kareem Hunt and Pacheco both at 13 carries. Pacheco was under 3 yards per carry. I just wonder if Kareem Hunt's a little bit undervalued still because of this split. And how will this split change as Pacheco gets healthier throughout the rest of the year? So that's something to at least monitor if we're looking at running back props on the Kansas City ends. I guess it goes for the receivers now with Hollywood Brown back. How does that impact the guys down the board, like we just mentioned, the Smith-Schuster and Justin Watson, Ryan? Well,
one point that I do want to make on the Steelers side, just to hammer home how important George Pickens is to this offense. So Russell Wilson's longest completion currently at 33.5. Since he's taken over as the starter 9 weeks ago, he is 7-2 to the over. He has 13 such completions of basically over 35 yards. 5 to George Pickens, 4 to Van Jefferson, 4 to Calvin Austin. Without George Pickens, the last 3 weeks, there's only been one such completion of over 35 yards, and that was to Calvin Austin. And then looking at a point that I'd made a couple weeks prior between the Steelers and the Browns was how much the Browns offense was getting shut out in games and how much the Steelers offense was shutting out teams or themselves also getting shut out. So the Steelers defense has shut out opponents in 24 of 60 quarters this season. They've had 4 shutout quarters the last 5 weeks. All 4 of those quarters were against the Browns. They were unable to shut out the Bengals, the Eagles, and the Ravens in any of the 16 quarters against those teams. And then on offense, they've been shut out in 9 of their 60 quarters this season. They've been shut out in 4 of the past 8 quarters of football against the Eagles and Ravens. So the Steelers offense really struggling the last 2 weeks, and their defense not performing well against the top performing offenses in the league. So the Steelers, in my mind, need George Pickens in this game to to keep it close to that 3.
Let's go to the other game on Christmas here. The Ravens up to 5 against Houston. Houston really just down to one high-end pass-catching option now with Tank Dell, second straight year with a significant injury to end his season early. It was brutal. Kind of amazed that he held on to the ball as his knee was getting shredded on that pretty brutal friendly fire hit in that game on Saturday against the Chiefs. But don't worry, Deontay Johnson's on the way to Houston, Ryan. Don't worry about that. Again, it's kind of amazing that Tomlin keeps winning whenever any of these reasonable wide receivers leaves. Their career just implodes. But regardless, traditional sense I'd only take. But I'm a little bit cautious here. I'm just curious to see the Houston offense, even against a lacking Raven defense, which did play pretty well last week against Pittsburgh. I'm still concerned about Houston's ability to score with the lack of pass-catching options now, with it basically down to Collins and Dalton Schultz as your really reliable options at this point.
Yeah, and to that point, that ties in perfectly with my top plays in this game.
Perfect.
I think the Texans are going to need to throw the ball to stay in this game. The way that the Ravens have been performing on offense recently, how they have been able to control the tempo of the game, running behind their two-headed monster in Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, and then actually getting some production out of their passing game. So the Texans, I think C.J. Stroud goes over his 30.5 passing attempts. Nico Collins goes over that 28.5 longest reception, and Dalton Schultz goes over his 2.5 receptions. I think losing Tank Dell plays a key role in getting those two pass catchers over this week. Nico Collins, his longest reception at that 28.5 yards, he's gone over in 7 of the 10 games that he's played in this season. He has at least a 25-yard catch in 9 of the 10 games this season. So you just need an extra 3 yards, and I have no problem playing that. And the Texans are going to need a big play to stay in this game, to win this game. And so another thing, Dalton Schultz over that 2.5 receptions in 10 of 15 games this season for Schultz, over in 9 of the last 12, and has 19 targets in the last 3 games. And I only expect that to go up, losing Tank Dell and now promoting Schultz to the number 2 pass catcher in this offense. And then taking a look at just that why I like the Stroud over that 30.5. He's gone over that in 10 of his 12 starts this season. So those 3 are automatic for me.
Well, we agree on one. We're both on Nico Collins over longest reception. Again, if Houston's going to stay in this game, Collins realistically has to have a huge day.
Yes.
If you want to ladder Collins once you get to 100 yards, 110, 120, if you want to do that, that's fine.
Okay.
The problem is, again, if you're Baltimore,
that's the guy you got
to shut down. Again, Mixon obviously has had a big year, but we're staying away from that. Stroud over half of interception. Again, he's been pretty reliable of throwing one. One bad decision a game from Stroud has been pretty reliable this year. Happened again on the opening drive against the Chiefs. And then we're going to Derrick Henry. We're going to take over longest rush, 19.5. This just kind of feels like one of those where Henry just wears him down when it's all said and done. One big pop in the fourth quarter, you're good to go. Those are the 3 favorite props. This one is, I think, the least bettable of these 3 games today and then Christmas Day. Don't worry, we get to talk about the Bears exclusively on Thursday. You ready for that, Ryan?
Yes, sir.
You excited for that?
So excited. I don't need to watch any more Bears football the rest of the season.
Let's bring in our good friend Vinny Magliulo here for the last 10 minutes. Vincenz, as we get rid of the chair, because the chair is just not a good chair over there.
Ryan, after that Bears reference, he might need to lean. He might need a lean.
I might need a.
So Vincenz, I just want to start real quick. The fuse went off on Thursday. And
no, the fuse was lit.
Well, the fuse is...
The bomb went off.
Well, you could say...
several bombs.
Hold on a second. You could say, Vinny, this fuse is still going till Wednesday now with these Christmas Day games.
Sure.
Which, I mean, it's just a continue... Well, it's always a continuous fuse, but this is an even bigger one than usual here with... Well, everyone going to the Hawaii Bowl tomorrow with San Jose State in action in that one.
You know, I made a point last week to say how big a betting weekend last weekend was. Well, I could tell you this one will probably surpass it. When you look at these, the way the games are scheduled, right? I mean, obviously tonight, I mean, there's continuous rollover, right? Now you have tonight, then you go 2 games Wednesday, Thursday we have a game, Saturday 3 games, and then 9 on Sunday. Those are just the NFL games. And Monday Night Football, of course, which is a big one. figured to be still a big game, I think, for Detroit. Then you got the playoff games. So, I mean, this and it's New Year's, which don't forget we'll have over 300,000 visitors in town next weekend for next week at this time for the holiday. So, probably will surpass what we saw last weekend. Just continues to keep growing, and the folks cashing tickets. Why wouldn't it? So, but hey, that happens. You get these streaks sometime, and that's the way things work out. Good for the economy.
Well, I mean, a stimulus package one way or another, right?
That's right. Like I always say, don't worry about the Fed.
So
trust your bookmakers.
I just want to ask you real quick, Vinny. We didn't really talk yesterday NFL much with Chris, but the Sunday night game was one of the weirder games I can remember.
The Cowboys and
the Bucks.
Yeah.
What a bizarre game that ends on, quite frankly, a play I don't think I've ever seen in the NFL before, where Mayfield somehow doesn't get sacked,
right?
Gets the ball out to Rachaad White, who, while fighting for extra yardage, legitimately just gets the ball taken from him, like Jerry took the marble rye from the old lady back in the day. But it was just encapsulated this league pretty perfectly at this point, where even in a year where the favorites have been awesome, especially short road favorites like Tampa was last night, then you get that, where Dallas is eliminated for good with the Washington win in the middle of the day, and Tampa had everything on the line, and the Bucks came out flat when it was all said and done in that game.
And now Atlanta's back, in the driver's seat. He's had the tiebreaker with the Buccaneers. Although when you look at these games coming up, I think
advantage Tampa still.
Advantage Tampa based on opponents. But look, this is another reason why you look at this league, and when people say and fans, you see signs in the stands about tanking. These are people fighting for their jobs, right? You say, well, they're under contract. Nothing's guaranteed, and so there's the other element too of it, right? There's the contractual side of it, but there's the stability side of it too, right? Where players want to probably stay where they're at especially if they have families and things like that. So there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, everybody, a lot of Raider fans here are up in arms because the Raiders won the game yesterday. I mean, again, people are fighting for their jobs, and so that's that's why fans. I always say polls don't determine prices. Well, fans are not going to be. They're not going to get the headset, and they're not going to be up in the booth calling plays and calling defensive rotations.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeff and I were talking before the show about the Raiders draft position because of that win.
I get what you're saying, but especially for that staff's not going to be there.
Right.
Okay, but I look, I get it. It makes sense, but boy, for potential future for the Raiders, what did I tell you? 6. They're down to now from 1. 6, and the highest it looked like they could go without a lot of help was 3.
Yes.
I get it.
But let's look at this, right? Okay, so staff's not going to be, but their reputations are at stake here too, right?
Yeah.
They're still going to have to get job and be somewhere, right? So there's the integrity factor as well. So again, it's frustrating. I realize, but it's also a situation where say whoever, say it's the Raiders. Let's say the Raiders, you get the number 1 pick. Do you think that the number 1 pick is going to put them at the top of the division next year?
Right. Well, here's all I'll say. No, probably not. Not next year, at least. But that division, by the way, for the lost souls of this league, the Raiders are in bad shape.
It's on the
forward.
uptick. There's no doubt about it.
Shape with that division.
Well, because of the key position, and that's the quarterback position. And there's no, and is Shedeur Sanders and Chris Andrews and we were talking about this before because there's some mock drafts out there already, which is amazing. But Shedeur Sanders, terrific talent, maybe the first overall pick. He may be the first quarterback taken. Well, likely the first quarterback taken. You know how much of a learning curve there is for that. We've talked about this too. I mean, just the speed factor and the schemes and the power of it. it's not like, these folks are going to be able to flip a switch. And in the case of the Raider, there's other building blocks. So there's also the stability factor when it comes to drafting and things like that. It's how do you provide the stability? Well, just ask the Pittsburgh Steelers as an example. How you provide stability and the way you're drafting, not just in the first round, but how you're drafting in the following rounds and finding talent and building the stability there. Jeff, you hit on a key point just a minute ago too. When all of a sudden some of these guys leave there, particularly the wide receivers, that their careers have gone one direction, and it's not north. So, there's a lot more to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, even to that point about going into the right situation, you look at the team that had the number 1 pick this past year.
Correct.
Having to fire their head coach, firing several coaches,
right.
and their quarterback is lost. So the quarterback itself, being able to draft Shedeur Sanders, doesn't answer it doesn't solve the equation, but there are plenty of other pieces that are needed for that organization. And
I'll get the head coach hire right first, more so than anything. Which they already have failed now multiple occasions since the Gruden resignation in the middle of the season a few years ago.
And you look at another part of it too. Has anybody done a better job of drafting in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round in recent years than, say, the Rams? I don't think so.
I mean, look,
right?
The Rams.
Right.
So yesterday, the Rams, by the way, Vinny, the Jets did something that has only been done now twice since 1940, which I feel like I'm saying this every other week.
Just cue the Jet reference, please.
So the Jets yesterday against the Rams, by the way, went 19-9. The Jets became the second team since 1940 to not punt in the game, but not reach double-digit points.
Right.
They joined the 1991 Colts, who, by the way, went 1-15 in 1991.
How many times did the Jets go for on a 4th down yesterday?
It was the Brandon Staley Memorial game for Jeff Ulbrich yesterday.
Yeah. So, there's that.
Vinny, I enjoyed it, especially since I laid the points with the Rams also.
Well,
so I very much enjoyed
that. As a Jet fan, still cashing tickets.
Vinny?
You're thanking the Jets, no matter what.
Vinny.
You can't lose.
This week the Jets go to Buffalo. I know Chris always makes the joke of, would you lay 100 points with a team? And of course you wouldn't. But if it said minus 100, I'd actually think about it this week with Buffalo. Without bad.
Well, let me know where you find that.
How much plus money you giving me at plus 100, Vinny?
Man. Tonight you went over, I'm sure. Yep. I mean, double digits here. With this game, 13.5. You see some 14s out there, right? And so it's kind of interesting too. In fact, out of state, there's even 15s I've seen. So, one way.
Before we go, got to bring it up because it's due this weekend.
There it is.
The bowl jackpot parlay card in the hands of young McCormick over there.
Yep.
$5 and a chance to win $25,000. And quite frankly, so 14-1 got a split on the final week of the college football season.
There were,
was it
7?
8?
It was Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
And I think there were 7 folks that split the 25. And again, it's guaranteed to 25. So if we don't achieve it, Michael Gaughan makes sure that there's at least that. If it goes through it, anything above that gets added to the jackpot. I mean, the great example, obviously, is the first one of the season, week 1 of the NFL season, which is out there for months. 4 months.
Yeah.
And had, I think it was like 37,000. But this one, $5, no point spreads. Just pick the winners and bet as many cards as you want.
Yeah.
Great stocking stuffers, by the way, for those of us that are out there still looking for the best bargains for Christmas.
So I will say this, Vinny. If anyone goes 15-0 on that, that's the most impressive feat you could draw up.
Yeah.
With the unknowns of who's playing, who's not, that would be very impressive if anyone goes 15-0. And if you go 15-0, you're guaranteed at least a share of it. If you go 15-0, you might be the sole winner this go around. You might be.
Sure.
You might be.
Yeah. Might own the studio.
You might very. I mean, that's the petty cash there, Ann. Right? Finally. All right.
So just a reminder, you got to get it in by kickoff on Saturday.
Yep.
Bowl games between Saturday, December 28th, and Friday, January 3rd. 15. You're picking the winners of 15 bowl games.
Right.
Yep. Well, there
And
we go.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
Happy
Merry
Hanukkah.
Christmas.
Happy holidays to everybody. Be
Enjoy
safe.
yourselves.
Enjoy.
So, and are Alex and Kenny here tomorrow morning?
Yes.
Yes, they are. Okay. Well, Alex and Kenny will be here tomorrow morning.
He'll be here. They
I
better
might
be
be by
here.
myself.
Yeah. Alex and Kenny will be here at 9 a.m. to preview the Hawaii Bowl and also give their thoughts on Christmas Day games as well. You and I are back on the 26th at 3 o'clock on this program. And then on Friday, Vinny, Chris, Jimmy, myself, Chris Felica for the second consecutive Friday at 2 o'clock on Friday to get you ready for the college football playoff quarterfinals and the weekend ahead in week 17 in the National Football
And we
League.
got Dwayne Kaluch will be on
Coach will be on Thursday.
Right? Good.
Yep.
Good.
As always, at 3:40. All right, Jerry and Drew Dog. Merry Christmas. I almost said Happy New Year as well, but we still have
can
time
do
to
that
wish you a
next
Happy
week.
New Year. Ryan, good work as always. We'll see you again on Thursday. Vinny,
Good job,
thank
guys.
you. I'm Jeff Parles. To everyone watching out there, hope you have a great Christmas. Happy Hanukkah as well. I'm Jeff Parles. We'll see you again next time on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.